would say God literally gave me a business mindset, And one thing that's amazing is sometimes the things that you speak over yourself or that is even spoken over you, which is truly the word of God, you don't really see it in the moment, but along the journey, you start to get nuggets that point toward, oh, you really call me to be this person.
Everybody, I'm Avery, CPA, your CPA bestie here, and welcome to Wealth, Wisdom, and Winning. Today we have here my beautiful sister in Christ, Frankel, and I'm going to just allow her to tell you guys a bit about herself before we dive into this awesome episode. So go ahead, sis, tell her.
Hi, everybody. So, as she said, I am Frankel Outen. I do a lot of different things, but I think the most relevant thing that I can explain here is that I'm a businesswoman, more so a kingdom entrepreneur. God called me into the entrepreneurial space a few years ago. My business officially launched about going on 2 years now. In May would make 2 years. But I started it really in 2021. And before that, it was a long journey of getting it, even to be off the ground at all. So I would say about 8 to 9 years I've been on this entrepreneurial journey. So that's me in the business sense. And outside of that, I am a worshiper. I love the Lord. I'm a worship leader at my church. I do a lot of different things with all of the gifts that God has given me.
Now, I can tell you all off the top, Frankel ushers in the people into the presence of the Lord. I have had the great, like I tell you, this is my sister. I've had the great pleasure to be inside rooms where she has literally just like y'all. Whew, if you know, you know. You've experienced good worship. You have. But let's talk
Oh,
about this.
glory to God.
Yes. So
Not
let's talk
even
about
like that.
let's talk about this 8 to 9 years of business entrepreneurship. I know entrepreneurship is so hard, and a lot of people, especially say people, they kind of are conflicted with money and conflicted with generating money. So how has this 8 to 9 years been for you from mindset in the beginning to where you are now for your business?
You asked a really good question. Mindset, for sure. If there's one thing I had to shift in, it's definitely been mindset. So when it started, I think it will be in about 9 years now. When this journey started, it started with an idea from God. So with that idea, I also thought I had everything that I needed, except the money, of course, but all of the other things, the permission to go forward with the idea from the local authorities and you know, the the planning, I had all of that. I thought I had all of it figured out at that time. But just to give context and make it make sense to all of the listeners, the business idea God gave me about 9 years ago was to do digital billboard advertising. Now, this came out of a time of um, let me backtrack a little bit. I've always said that I would be two things, a businesswoman and a doctor. The doctor is a whole other story for a different podcast, that journey. But I always knew that I would come into entrepreneurship. I always knew that. But I just didn't know how it would happen. I didn't know it would be in this order. So at the time when I started really praying into it, it wasn't because I just knew I would be a businesswoman. It was because I was struggling financially and I was in college. My family was struggling, and I just wanted a way out for us, a way for us to be able to live a little bit more comfortably. And like when you're at that point of struggle where you don't want to just be comfortable, you want to be able to do the things that you're trying to focus on, like school and, other ideas and maybe family, stress free. That's really what I wanted, like to not have to struggle and stress myself out with the things that
Mm-hmm.
things. So I started praying to God for a business idea that led me to praying about things that I already knew I could do, like drawing, singing, something else I had an interest in, like baking. And I just wasn't getting anything that made sense because here I am, a full time student, where I go and drawing portraits all day. Like I have schoolwork to do.
Yeah.
Part-time student. Where am I going to be singing all day? Where am I going to be baking? So nothing was really hitting
Mhm.
the mark for what I needed it for at the time. So God said, you need to pray a specific prayer. So
Mhm.
that specific prayer for me was, okay, God, I want a business idea that can generate a lot of money, can well that I don't have to be 100% present for, that I don't have
Mhm.
to hire anyone for. Not that I didn't want to hire people, but I was like, let me just be so specific.
Yeah.
That I don't have to hire anyone for if I don't want to. And at this time I was in college in the United States, and I was praying for this idea to be launched in the Bahamas. That's where I'm from, Freeport. So physically, I wouldn't be able to be there because I'm in school, and I wouldn't be able to really manage a staff from abroad. That's how I thought about it. And I needed
Mhm.
it to make money. So that was as God said, be specific. And I was like, okay, this is as specific as it would get. And about a week later, that's when I really heard him clearly concerning this prayer that I was praying for over a year at that point. And he said, digital billboard advertising. Well, he just said digital billboards. And I was like, hmm. So then I decided to do my research. And, long story short, it birthed into the idea to place roadside digital billboards in Freeport, Bahamas, which we do today.
Mhm.
So from that time of having that idea from God to now has been about a 9-year journey, because with my said to you, I got the
Mhm.
idea. I thought I had everything, but that came with me now going to the local, governing body, which is the Port
Mhm.
Authority, and saying, "Hey, I want to do this idea here. What would it take? How can I get permission and licensure to do it?" And what I thought might take, like, a quick application and a yes, you could do it, took
Mhm.
a lot longer than that. They had to go through a process of creating an entire bylaw just to allow it to be done
Wow.
in the island. So I would say that this inquiring and this, constantly checking on them and constantly asking and really knocking at the door, pushed that forward for them to, that, they eventually created the bylaw. And by creating the bylaw, they have to open it up to the public. So now the idea that I wanted to do is open to the public, and me and everyone else that had an idea or had an interest really to do this in Grand Bahama needed to submit a business proposal. So I think it was maybe a few years after that, because it took them a while to make the law.
Mhm.
So a few years after that, I submitted my business proposal when they put it out in the newspaper, and I was one of them called back to present my proposal before the entire board at the Port Authority. And then from then on, they had to scale it down to how many participants they would actually choose. At the time, I thought it was going to be one, but they happened to choose four
Mhm.
licensees to give permission to do this type of venture. So I was one of four awarded. I think there might have been over 20 something applications. I'm not sure of the exact number, but they scaled it down, and I was one of four selected. So you can imagine just that little window was a process and a time.
Mhm.
And then after selecting us, now the real planning, because when I got the idea, I thought, okay, shouldn't be too hard, right? This is an awesome idea. Everyone's gonna love
Mhm.
it. And the resources shouldn't be too hard to find. But when you have a project where that involves construction, that involves
Mhm.
resourcing items, it could get complicated, and then you have to get the land, approved. You have to make sure that it is suitable for your structure. All of these things that I had no idea of as a science major, I had to learn
Mhm.
along the journey. So when you ask about mindset, the Frankel that got the idea is not the same Frankel that is now running the business that God gave her the idea for. Um, I would say God literally gave me a business mindset. And one thing that's amazing is sometimes the things that you speak over yourself, or that is even spoken over you, which is truly the word of God, you don't
Mhm.
really see it in the moment, but along the journey, you start to get nuggets that point toward, oh, you really call me to be this person. In the beginning, I really just wanted that business to come off of the ground because I needed help at the time. When
Mhm.
I would declare, like, oh, I'm going to be a businesswoman and a doctor, I was talking 10, 20 years way ahead after my medical career, and I settled and I have my
Mhm.
money to just fund my own stuff. I never saw it in this way. But God reshaped my mindset and the way I saw entrepreneurship, and even the ease that I thought I would get, just 1 2 done. I'll have the money to do it when I have this big time job and all that stuff. Um, and he also teach me perseverance and patience and how to continue to push, because that's something entrepreneurs need. You need to know how
Yes,
to push when doors seem to be closed. You need to know how to tarry, as the saints would say, for 9 years for an idea that God gave you. You can imagine God gave me the idea. So
girl.
I
I'm
had
here
the
sitting
audacity to
listening.
believe. I
I'm
had
here
the
sitting
audacity
now to listening to his
to
story. I'm here listening to his story, and I'm in awe because as somebody who prays to God and asks for provision, you give me vision for a provision, and then I go to find out what I need to do to grasp what you gave me, to only come up with a bunch of red tape, people taking their time and then taking my idea and opening it to these other people. They probably never even thought of this, but now they have my idea to just go and execute. Girl, how did you, girl?
but
I'd have been like, Lord, what's this?
I'll say, there was a lot of those feelings for real, because you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. And just like
Hmm.
no one knew my journey behind the scenes, I don't know others' journeys. So, I don't know exactly when people first came up with the idea. But one thing that I know they have shared before, like I approached them initially with it. Um, so I didn't know what much to think at the time.
Hmm.
When they said that they, would open it up to everyone, I was like, oh God, how how you gonna tell me to do something and then send me on a long journey, a long chase to do it? But like I said, God taught me patience, perseverance, humility. Because, like I was starting to say, I had the audacity to think it would go the way I had it planned in my head.
Hmm.
Because, like God give me the idea and I have the plan. But that's not how it works. He gives you the idea, He gives you the plan, He gives you the humility to go with it, He gives you the patience, He gives you the journey, you know. So it took a lot of just letting go. And the reason I say that is because along that time, there was times when I was thinking it wasn't going to happen. Like, well, maybe they're
Hmm.
not doing it anymore, because I wasn't really thinking that, okay, COVID and the hurricane probably
Hmm.
put some dents in their plans. When you're just laser focused on what it is that God tell you to do, you're not really thinking of the circumstances the people planning may be going
Yeah.
through. So they gave that context, like, hey, we're just getting back to you all now. I think it was maybe 3 years after we submitted our proposals, we got the notification, like, hey, are you still interested? And, they said, well, in light of the pandemic and the Hurricane Dorian at the time, things got delayed. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, yes, of course, I'm still interested. But honestly, in that time, I thought, okay, maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe God just said something to me, and I don't know, maybe it was just a prophecy that they're going to be doing something. I started to think all
Eventually,
kind of stuff.
yeah.
Doubt started to come in. So I'll be very transparent and say that there was a time I thought it wouldn't happen, but that's what God taught me, how to let go, because I did get a little frustrated. If it was just something I came up with on a whim or through research, I would have been okay. But I wasn't okay at the time, because I'm like, no, but God, you gave me this idea. Like, when you have that
Yes.
burning, nagging thing, like, I can't let this go
Yes.
because God gave it to me. Yeah,
Can I ask you a
so it taught
question?
me to let go.
So I know what you feel about that. And people, for me, sometimes that happens because I know what was spoken over my life and I know what I heard God said for me. And
Yeah.
what advice can you give to entrepreneurs who are experiencing that? Because I will say something to somebody about it and they'll be like, no, I just trust God. I'm like, I don't want you to think I'm out here not trusting God. Like, if you hear me asking questions, excuse me, if you hear me asking questions about something that I said that I feel like God said, I'm not questioning him. I'm questioning me now because I'm trying to figure out, well,
Yeah.
did I hear you,
Did I
sir? Is this
hear
something?
right?
Yeah. Is were they
Yeah.
real prophets that said that? Did they conspired and tell each other what they
Mhm.
said so that they can tell me the same thing? I'm not. I will never, because I know his mo and I know what he has done. I've seen him work not just in my life but other people's life. So when it's not
Yeah.
looking like how he said it's gonna look, I'm like, well, maybe I didn't hear you. What advice can you give to other
Mhm.
entrepreneurs who may be in that space?
Well, first of all, when you feel that way and when you're feeling, when you're doubting if it was God or not, continue to put it before Him. You may not always get the answer how you expect it to be from God, but I do
Hmm.
believe that God is faithful enough to confirm His word. And second, when you know that it was God that said it to you, learn the art of letting
Yeah.
go and allowing God to let the journey unfold. Because that's what I had to do. Like, God allowed me to be frustrated to the point where, I would say frustrated and disappointed, because there's a difference when you're just frustrated, but when you're frustrated and disappointed, you have that sense of giving up, like deep down in your core, like, man, I'm over it, so to speak, you know?
Yeah.
And I came to that place where I'm like, God, at this point, I don't even know. Like, if it happened, it don't. And I didn't know that that attitude of Lord, if it happened or not, was what God wanted me to come to, because that was a place where I let go and I allow God to just let it play out in His way. Because I was holding on to the idea and the instruction from Him, like, hey, I want you to launch this business, almost like a prized possession. Like, wow, I have this treasure from God. He told me to do this. I'm running with it. But sometimes when God gives you a word, you have to be submitted and surrendered to Him enough to release that same
Mhm.
word back to Him, to release that same promise back to Him, and know that some way, somehow, whatever it is He have to do, if He have to blow your file up from the bottom of the pile to the top, He's
Mm-mm.
going to make it happen in the time that He sanctioned for it to happen. Because what I realized later on, even though I had all of those obstacles and what seemed to be set back, it happened at the perfect time. If it happened earlier, if it happened when I thought it should happen, if it happened when I got the idea, I don't believe it would have gone anywhere close to how it is now. I don't believe that would have been the right time. So I had to learn to let go. And when I did let go, a few years actually later after that is when I saw everything unfold, and it was a random call that really alerted me that they were still doing it. I When I tell y'all I let it go, I didn't really say, well, I completely give up on the idea, but I let go and I just allowed God to let my life's journey play out, because you're not just here just to fulfill the specific purpose that He has for you. He also wants a relationship with you where He can tell you,
Mhm.
like, okay, Avery, you need to work on this. Avery, I have you to do that, but you need to work on a little patience. So I'm going to stretch this for maybe like 4 years, because on that journey, you're going to gain what you need to gain. Now, I put no real number on your things, it's just
Girl, you
hypothetical.
should say 4 months or something. I feel that.
Let's say 4 months, because you need that 4 months just to be able to gain the tools so that when you get there, you'll be
Hmm.
able to stand in that place and really hold the promise properly. Because
Yeah.
imagine you getting the promise, but then your arms are not strong enough to hold it. You might as well don't have it,
Listen,
So that's what I would tell everyone, to just trust the
stand
Lord on the
still and
journey
see
when
the
you know that
promise.
He gave you that idea. Because I know I wasn't thinking anything about that. I have no background in this field. At the time, I didn't even have a business background. I just graduated with my MBA, woo, 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 this month. So I didn't have all of the things, you know? So, trust Him along the journey and just let God do what He doing.
I love that. That is so good because it really gets tough out here, and we sometimes just literally have to stand still and see the promise. We don't have an option.
Yeah.
We don't have a choice, and mindset is the biggest shift that all of us would need. So when you think about now that you're operational, because girl, God bless you. I don't know. God bless you though.
That's a
What
different
what has
podcast.
been It's so serious. It's so
You
serious.
know, all these journeys are like expensive. Yeah.
I can imagine. But how has been your journey in strategy for your business now? Because I mean, now that you're operational, it's been almost 2 years. What has been your growth strategy, and how have you been growing your business?
My growth strategy always goes back to the root, back to ground zero. Ground zero was me consulting God for an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Remember, there was a 9 year span, well, eight or so now, somewhere around there, because we've been operational. But there was a long gap that I got
Mm-hmm.
to learn what this really takes and who it's about. Because it's not, I call myself a kingdom entrepreneur, and I'm sure you do too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I knew what it took to start the business, and that same thing is what will sustain the business. So I still consult God, honestly. Um, and there's something very humbling about going in an area that you're not familiar with, that
Mm-hmm.
you don't have, that you don't necessarily put a label on yourself as, hey, I'm the guru for this. Because remember I said I started off asking God or praying for a business idea, but focusing on areas that I knew I was good at, like singing and drawing portraits. Like, I knew I could do that stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
there's something humbling about when you go in a field that is not particularly where you're an expert or where you even have knowledge initially. You always remember, like, hey, I can't do this on my own, especially as a
Yes.
believer. I'm speaking really to the believers, like we operate from a place of knowing where our help comes from. So I have that same strategy first as the foundation. And of course, through that, God allowed me to tap into different resources that can help me build out, a practical strategy for scaling the business and managing the business or even just managing a team. And a lot of that knowledge has come through my MBA studies, and just being in the thick of it, working with
Mm-hmm.
clients, doing my own personal research. So I would say those three things: my formal studies, my personal research, because you have to always stay on, sharp and on top of whatever industry you're in. And
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, always consulting God, like, God, what should I do next? Should this be phase two? Because, on paper, this may look good, but God sees way ahead of us.
Yes.
So that's really what I do. I pray.
So I know that you talked about the business. You have Frankie Bakes too. You
Yeah.
singing, y'all go check out her single. Give us the name. I know I can't pronounce it right.
Yes. It's Talitha Coom. We're actually coming up on 1 year since I launched
Oh,
it. Next
y'all,
week,
that's
I
a
think
really
it's,
good song. I love
yeah,
it.
Talitha
Look
Coom.
like April and May must see your time frames. And then two,
Really?
now you have Nexus as well. So that's three businesses that I saw. I don't know if there's more, but
Well,
that's a lot
I
of
wouldn't
hats.
call the music really a business. I don't know, but I just really released one single, but I guess, well, I don't know.
Yeah, so far, so far. But that's
Yeah.
still a lot of hats to wear because you also minister and you're also in ministry. How are you balancing all of that you are doing to ensure that ministry stays a prominent factor in your life, but also building wealth because we understand that we need wealth. The kingdom needs money to be built. So, how are you
Yeah.
managing all of that to make sure you stay and keep God at the head of your life?
It's definitely challenging, and I will not sit here and say I have mastered it because I have not. It's still a work in progress for me. But I did recently graduate with my MBA, like I mentioned. So a lot of my time for certain things is freed up. Um, but I try my best to balance. Of course, God has to be first and foremost. And the way God has shaped my journey, he made room for me to
Yes.
really commit and surrender to him first. So, even before I started my MBA, that was really the journey I was on. You a little bit familiar because we went to the same church. But
Hmm.
God told me to sit and serve at Gateway. And that's exactly what I did. And through my obedience in that, I started to see him open doors as I wasn't really sure where things were going. I still have my business running, in Freeport, and that has its staff. But when God gave me that instruction, I didn't really know what would come later on, but like I
Mm-hmm.
said, he opened doors in that time frame of me just being obedient. So I would say, this sounds odd, but I would say obedience a lot of the times helps you to balance, what it is that's on your plate. So I committed to that first, and I saw like everything else around me kind of just took shape. The MBA came at a convenient time, and I was able to do that and also still, minister and serve the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And even the graduation time frame came at a good time. And then remember, I prayed for a business idea that I don't have to be there for. That was
Yes,
part of the
yes.
criteria. So, you know, um, the business is in such a way that I don't have to physically be there, It'd be nice, but I don't have to
Yes.
physically be there all the time. And, when I'm home, I definitely am there. Um, so yeah, I would say that God kind of customized it for me because he already know his daughter. I still struggle
Mm-hmm.
with time management, with being able to balance things. Because once I'm stuck on a task, I'm stuck on that. And where I probably should spend 2 hours, I spend four, so
Oh.
sometimes I have to like reel that in and say, okay, you know what? Let me just lay this down and focus on something else. But I think God kind of customized it for me, where
Mm-hmm.
as I'm serving him and doing what he asked me to do, things kind of fall in place at the right times. Yeah.
Right. I love that because we have to be mindful that at the end of the day, if it's not being done for Christ, it's not going to last. And everything ultimately
Yeah.
is supposed to give him glory. And I know people struggle with, well, I have to do this for the business, this for the business, this for the business. But don't forget your sauce. Don't forget
Yeah.
who gave you the ability to even have the strength to do some of these things. So when you think that, oh, I could just read my Bible later, or I could just pray later and spend time with the Lord, you're missing out on strategy, you're missing out on wisdom, and you're definitely missing out on strength because, like you said, we can't do things on our own strength. Everything that we
Mhm.
do is from God. So, like, think about it. Even when you're on a fast, girl, anyway, I went 7 days without eating anything, just tea and water,
It's a
and
heavy
that one. I got roughed right up from him, so I was like, you know what? Let me just obey. But
one.
I wasn't tired. I had a lot of energy still. I
Mhm.
have a problem sleeping most times. I'm up until most 3, 4 a.m. sometimes, and then I'll go sleep
Wow.
and then still have to wake up 8 o'clock or so. And sometimes that's hard, but
Yeah.
I slept, really good during that time. I think I might have to not eat to sleep. But nevertheless, I know that when I do things for God, like everything kind of it lines up. Especially with me, I think I have like a just a go 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 go, and I have to force
Yeah.
myself to reel in and rest. So how are you
Mhm.
balancing your rest and being intentional and ensuring that amongst all of this that you have going on or you're being instructed to do, you're still taking time to take that gift that God has given you of rest?
Girl, God's still ragging me on that. Because I mean, one thing with me, I like to get my sleep in. I like to get all my 8 hours. So I've always been good with that. But lately, when I started my master's program, I got into the habit of doing those later nights again. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
really just because the program was hard, but it was because now I have something else to balance, with everything else. So um when you shift your rest cycle, so to speak, because sleep and rest are two different things.
It
Rest is
is.
don't always involve like literally going to sleep. So when you shift your rest cycle, it kind of takes a while to get back into the groove of it. So I'm honestly still getting back there. But one of the things he instructed me to do was to create a schedule for myself and create a strict bedtime.
Hmm.
I set the bedtime, but I have not yet started going to sleep at the bedtime. But I would say that that's the strategy. Go to sleep at your bedtime, no matter what it
Mm-hmm.
is you have going on. And I'm preaching to myself too, like go to bed at your bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been. I guess you could say I've been clearing out a lot of things, like things I had backlog that I wanted to get done before I graduated. I mean, while I was in school, now that I'm done, I'm catching up on, clearing out some things. But
Hmm.
my plan is like when I get those things cleared out, I need to stick to this bedtime so that I can get up and do my devotion at the time he told me to, and like get rest in. Because when you
Yeah.
don't prioritize your bedtime, it might seem trivial to a lot of people. And I know you mentioned going to bed at 3, 4 a.m. Sometimes you get used to that, and it's hard to go to bed earlier. But when you prioritize that specific sleep time, it kind of creates a ripple effect for everything else, because you can't fully rest if your body itself has not had a chance to regenerate, you know,
Hmm.
cells and all of that stuff. Your muscles haven't had a chance to rest. Your body really truly resets itself, so to speak, when you sleep. So getting in that sleep time is definitely essential. That was what he told me. So I'm sharing that nugget with you.
I thank you because I need that. And I hope that that helps you guys as well. So as we wrap up, I'm not going to ask you a question. I'm just going to, like, is it a question? I don't know, but I'm going to tell you to tell us based on all of your knowledge, all of your experience that you would have went through as being not just an entrepreneur, but a kingdom entrepreneur. What is it that God is laying on your heart for us?
I mean, just like general to share with you all.
Whatever it is, He's telling you to tell us. We're listening.
Okay, so what he laid on my heart is for anyone that has an idea, because we started off talking about that. If you have an idea, there's a difference between letting it lie dormant and having a long journey like mine. Um, because one thing I can say I didn't do, I didn't let the idea lie dormant, meaning that I cast it to the side and didn't put any effort to it. Sometimes effort even looks like sitting down and allowing God to download to you the vision for it, or just sitting down and speaking to Him about it, even if you don't have all of the tools or the things to make it happen. Because I promise you, in those moments, you will find witty ideas, you'll find wisdom and direction that you couldn't have thought of on your own time. But what I realized that a lot of people do, God would give them a business idea and they would let it lie dormant because the money isn't there. The resources aren't there. You probably got a couple of no's. I did too. I didn't have the money, I didn't have the resources, I didn't have any of those things, but I did know that I heard from God. So if there's somebody listening, you heard from God, He told you to go and start that restaurant, He told you to go and start that podcast, He told you to go and start that online course, whatever it is. Even if you have a little, if He told you to start, start. You never know what lies on the other side of your obedience, on the other side of you just getting up and trying. Don't wait for it to be perfect. I struggle with perfectionism. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. If the journey for me was perfect as had envisioned it, I wouldn't have had the beautiful story that I'm telling you all. I wouldn't have had any of those things to say. It would have been boom, bam, bam, and no one could relate to that. Well, most people, I should say, most people can't relate to, oh, I just had a couple million sitting to start my businesses. So, once you get up and you start and you put your foot forward and you keep pressing, you keep knocking on the doors that are closed because you know God, you biggity with it, and you know God gave you the idea. You know what I mean? Like you gotta be aggressive, knowing that God gave me this idea, and no matter what, I will not stop. I will not let that seed lie dormant and die. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
that's feeling like just that push to push somebody. Somebody is sitting like on the edge of, you know, action. There's a difference between sitting there and thinking and pondering on something versus action. And I know I said, meditating and speaking to God is also a step forward, but that's still some form of action.
Yes, it
When I
is.
say let it lie dormant, I mean like, oh man, I know God gave me that idea, but I don't get the money. Yeah, I know. And then you see somebody else doing it. Oh, God had told me to do it. And then you had them tell that story. They didn't have the money. Oh, they didn't have the money either. And then you had them say, I didn't have the resources and I got the pushback. Wow. Like, I could have done it, or look what God could have done. You don't want that to be you.
Yes,
You don't want that to be you. So get up and do it.
I love that. He watches his word to make sure that it performs. Let that be
Yes.
your guiding factor. If it doesn't look like it's gonna happen and he spoke it over you, like this is the man that
Mhm.
said something and
Yes.
it has to happen. He makes sure it happens. So I love that. That encouraged me. And first of all, you were shouting in my ear when you said, "Oh, he gave you that," and you talk about you don't have the resources, and then you see somebody else do it, and it's like, first of
He
all,
sent me
that
right
mash
into my story.
all
Just
all my
watch that
toast
one.
was mashed. I don't like that.
Yeah. Mhm.
But I do love it. I do love it. I do love all of the nuggets that you drop. And even me, I'm inspired. I love to be amongst people that get it. I love to work with sage entrepreneurs and be in the community of entrepreneurs. And if you are looking, specifically ladies, if you're looking for a group of women that are saved and are going and building their kingdom businesses, feel free to join She Rings Business. I'll have the link in the description. And then for men and women, we have Wealth, Wisdom, and Winning, the Facebook group that we are growing and trying to share what it is God's placed on our heart. And not just that, both groups are for sharing not just what we feel, but what are we doing, practical ways. How can we build our businesses and ensure that it's being done God way, not just, praying and fasting. Like we know that. I know it sounds cliche, but it's needed. And then we're also coming with the financial tips, the marketing tips, the branding tips. We're coming from every angle to make sure that your business grows. And if you want to connect with Frankel, it's super easy. It's her name. Y'all can see it on the screen, Frankel Auden. And I'm also gonna have it in the description if you want to follow her on social media. If you want to reach out to her, I'm sure she's not gonna ignore you. If you want to listen to one of her songs, anything, you guys can connect with her. And I'm pretty sure that she's gonna bless you. And final thing is I love the fact that we are kingdom wealth builders, so we're kingdom entrepreneurs. I am also launching my coaching. Um, I've been in the face of God. I've been coaching, yay. I've been coaching people and trying to help them on their financial journeys and making sure that they get what it is that they want, be it a business, a home, whatever it is. And I've been in God's face just trying to hone in on that. And He has given me a framework, which is the Kingdom Wealth Framework. Y'all, it's big. It's a lot. And it's all encompassing where we talk about mindset, which is the biggest thing that most entrepreneurs and most saved entrepreneurs struggle with. We're going to be talking about income generating activities. We're going to be talking about seeking God's face and what it is that He's telling us to do, making sure that we have practical strategies, again, like I said, that marketing, that financial, all of that good stuff. If you need coaching, feel free to check out the link that's also in the description for that. I'll be happy to help and connect with you guys. But I hope this podcast has been beneficial to you guys. I hope that it has blessed your heart. If you know anybody else who can be blessed by this, please share it, comment, let us know what your thoughts are. Let us know what you may have went through in your entrepreneurial journey. You don't know who is going to read it and who can benefit from it. And I've said a lot. I'm going to let Frankel say one more thing, then we're going to just sign off.
Whoever that is sitting on the idea, go, 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 do it. I don't have anything else to say but to push y'all, just like I got up and did it. So I hope my testimony inspires you to get up and go.
Awesome. So, guys, you have it right there. Get up, go, move it. I like to say, don't think about it, be about it. Like, oh, I think about. Don't think about it. Be about it. Y'all have a great day. Remember, God loves you, and so do we. Bye.